Hello and welcome to Clickbait. I am Matt and this is the new Panasonic TZ99, unless of course you're in America, in which case it's the ZS99, but we're not there, so it's a TZ. Anyway, this is perhaps the new perfect Swiss watch camera for me. I don't know. So I'm always on the lookout for the perfect go everywhere, do everything camera, the one camera to rule them all. Something that's small enough to fit into a pocket and be with me at all times, but at the same time be versatile enough to do pretty much everything, have some manual override controls and have decent enough quality that if I sort of see that perfect light striking a landscape or a building on the way to work or just out and about, I can whip it from a pocket, grab that shot and have it in a stock library by lunchtime and be earning money. And also shoot 4K video with a half decent microphone, so again, if I'm out and about and need to grab some B-roll or a bit of extra footage for a video, I can whip it from a pocket, grab that shot and have that edited into a video by lunchtime as well. But something that will fit into a jacket or trouser pocket, stick into any bag and you won't notice it's there until you need it. Is this that perfect Swiss Army knife camera I've been looking for? Now size-wise, it's kind of there. It's not huge. It's 68mm tall and 43mm at its widest point. So it's relatively small. It's not tiny, it's not absolutely tiny, but it is pretty small. It'll fit in certainly a jacket pocket. It'll just about squeeze into your Levi's, but you'll really know it's there. So it's really better for a coat pocket, that kind of thing. And in terms of weight, it's 332 grams. So again, not particularly heavy, but with just enough heft in it so you can hold it steady. You need a little bit of weight in your hands to stop it vibrating and moving. And the body does feel nicely finished. It's got a nice sort of solid metallic feel when you tap it, and a little hand grip which makes holding it a little bit easier, but doesn't protrude too far. In fact, it doesn't even come out quite as far as the lens when it's fully retracted, so it shouldn't snag when you're trying to get it out of a pocket. Although one thing I will mention at this point early on is the on-off button, which is flush against the top of the corner. Has a really nasty habit of brushing the camera on, and so you try and get it out your pocket and you can't because it's extended the lens and you're stuck with it jammed inside your pocket, which is far from ideal. But that lens is the thing that makes this camera so outstanding and so, well, almost unique really, because it has got a zoom lens like no other, a 30x zoom going from 24mm up to an astonishing 720. It is ludicrous. To like with these pictures, you can be walking along a footpath, see a scene with a bird in the distance, zoom fully out and grab a shot of that bird on a tree or a branch or something and make it virtually full frame. Look at this demonstration here. I was stood on the North Kent coast in Grain, and this is with it fully wide at 24mm. The camera zooms all the way out and now you're looking at Essex. You're looking into another county, Southend I believe it is we're looking at over here. That's like 11 miles away. This is a ridiculous level of zoom for a camera that is that tiny. Of course, the trade-off of that is that it's using a fairly small sensor to get that level of zoom out of the optical lens. So instead of having a 1-inch sensor, it's now got a 1/2.3-inch sensor. I'm never quite sure how you meant to say that, but you know, it's like micro 4/3 kind of dimensions. But that is also kind of its downfall, because that smaller sensor does mean if you're not in perfect lighting conditions, the shot does kind of fall apart and it can be about as disappointing as a Wetherspoon's apple crumble. And if you're a connoisseur of apple crumble and you've tried one of those, you'll know how disappointing that is. This is partly because this isn't an all-new camera. This is basically a warmed over TZ95, which was a very good camera in its day, but we've now lost the EVF viewfinder and got a slightly extended zoom range. So, you know, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Personally, I do miss the EVF because a few times I've tried to shoot this in bright light and I've really not been able to see what I've been doing on the back of the screen. Now, that screen though is really rather handy. It flips out so you can see what you're doing for low-level shots, or turn upside down for high-level shots if you want to be creative. If you go to fully vertical, you go into selfie mode, and the camera kind of knows you're in selfie mode, starts looking for faces automatically, which it kind of does anyway as well. And if you take a photo, it will do it in self-timer without even telling it to. So it's great for parties, for doing thumbnails and YouTube videos if you're looking for blogging type stuff. It's kind of handy. The screen itself is a touch screen with lots of menu options on there, and let's talk quickly about the controls on this camera, because there are lots and lots of options for manual override. You have a mode wheel on the top, so currently shooting in aperture priority on it. It's got shutter priority, full manual, full program, and IA mode, not AI, IA. And we've got a video mode, as well as a scene function. You've got 2 shutter buttons. You've got one for still photos and one for video mode. If you're in any given mode, aperture, shutter, whatever, and then hit the record, it will start recording in the mode that you've just used. So right now I'm recording myself in aperture priority. If you put yourself into video mode, you then have the option on the touchscreen to choose program, aperture, shutter and other video options. So it is quite versatile. Currently, I'll jump onto the microphone of this camera. It has got 2 stereo microphones built into the top of the camera. So listening to me right now on the Nikon with the Rode microphone, and now listening to me on the Lumix with its built-in microphone. There's no jack to plug a microphone in. It does have a USB-C, which you think might be compatible, but it's not. And there's a micro HDMI as well, but those are just purely for data and power, not for audio. You've also got 2 function wheels. You've got a big control function around the lens. This, in aperture mode, is the aperture wheel. In shutter priority, it's the shutter thing. You can set it to focus as well. And you've got a thumb wheel on the back, which is a tiny bit awkward, which also does the same things if you want them to. You've also got 3 function buttons, which are programmable to do all manner of different things, as well as a macro setting and a flash setting. I tend to leave it turned off because the position of the flash is pretty useless, and I always seem to hold it with my hand over the flash, so there's no point having it on in the first place. So in terms of practicality and use, yes, it is very, very good indeed. We've got lots of options, all the options to use it like a proper real camera, like a DSLR or a mirrorless or something. It's all there for full manual control if you want it to. You've no way of syncing to a flash and you've no way of syncing to a microphone, so that is a bit of a downer. However, the proof is very much in the pudding, and I've come down to the river to take a few photos, and also I've been using it for a few days as well, just out and about to see how I get on. And the proof really is very much in the pudding. So I'll head back to the Mac and we'll see whether or not this lives up to its dream goal of being my perfect one camera to rule them all, the perfect camera for doing literally everything. If you've only got room to pack one camera for your day out, is this the thing that's going to keep you happy? That is the big question. So I headed off down the river and took some more photos with this thing, and it is incredibly versatile. The way you can just walk up to and it is very, very versatile. The way you can just walk up and with that huge zoom lens with your manual level controls, you can set this thing up exactly how you want it. You can set your ISO, leave it on auto ISO. You can then control your shutter speed, your aperture. So looking down on the big weir, you can freeze frame on that rough water, but zooming in, it wasn't that dark there, and it is still kind of grainy, a little bit disappointingly so, and compared with something I've shot on, say, the Nikon Z6 II or III, it's, well, nowhere near as crisp, but it's sharp, just not crisp. But the colours it grabs are quite vibrant. I shot it all in RAW to give a little bit more control to the edit afterwards, and it has punched out quite nicely. Unfortunately, there's any kind of screw thread on the front of the lens, so you can't add a polarizing filter or a skylight or any other filter you want to unless you physically hold it over the front with your hand when you take a photo, because there's a lot of reflection on this, which would have been nice to lose with a bit of polarization. But generally the color rendition is quite good, and when we've got this picture of, say, the graffiti or the food sign, where the light was just a little bit brighter when I took the photo, it's dropped the ISO down a touch more, and then it's come out without the grain visible, which is nice to have that. But again and again, the thing with this camera that you keep coming back to is the fact that that monster zoom absolutely saves the day every time. For example, standing on the weir, I could zoom right out 24mm, get this row of floats, these buoys across the river to give foreground detail and then a picture of the river itself, or I could zoom right in and go tight on the barges in the distance, which makes it a completely different photo without moving at all. And you couldn't do that really with a phone without exaggerating the pixels in the photos from the phone image. So that is a major bonus. Also, the same area, standing at the bottom, the view I got from standing behind the fence with a wide angle lens, like you would have with a phone or a fixed focus compact normally, is this. All you can see, these concrete and girders and all the interesting stuff is way off tiny in the distance. But this time I've got a slightly different version of that same photo of the barge, but from lower down, which is a nicer option to have. Just walking around a lot of the time, I did wind up using it just purely on the 24mm setting, because I do quite like shooting on a wide angle lens, so I was getting nice little landscapey pictures with little bits of foreground detail. And then the quality does look quite good. You don't really lose much optically because it is an optical zoom, not a digital zoom, which makes a huge difference. But having that option does mean you can punch in and get details you wouldn't necessarily get with a 24mm lens. It's really good having that option just there. That is something you keep on coming back to again and again. I'm sure I keep on saying that. When I was at the seafront on grain with this camera, the light was just beautiful. Lovely kind of golden winter light, and the sun was glinting off the water, giving that golden glow to everything. And I left it just in aperture priority mode, and it did a great job of just picking the right ISO, the right shutter speed, focusing where I wanted it to. And you can pick your focus point just by tapping on the back of the screen, and it'll tell it where to focus if it doesn't choose the right place automatically. And it kind of knew what I wanted. I've got silhouette photos looking up, I've got the highlights and shadows pictures, got the reflection photos, and once again that big zoom let me take photos I would not have got with any other compact. Looking out at the big old fort in the river, could not have grabbed that on a regular compact. Now this was an interesting one. This is something that kind of captivates me and fascinates me a lot. These American style signs, these hoardings above these fast food places I've only really recently started getting in the UK, and they're kind of fascinating in a way. They look a little bit alien, a little bit out of place. At the same time, they're kind of interesting to look at. And I saw this one from right across the other side of a dual carriageway, but the way that the Costa sign was framed against the sky just absolutely grabbed me. So I had to go park the car in the Costa, run back across 4 lanes of traffic, and again, because I had this camera on me, I could punch in to just a little bit that I was focusing on, the blue sky with the Costa sign detail at the bottom, and also the big totem pole thing on its own. And it did a good job. The quality is good. One of the main ones I wanted, it didn't quite get sharp, but mostly it pinned them absolutely nail sharp. But again, I'm just seeing a lot of grain texture, which I'm really surprised at for a 20 megapixel camera. It's interesting and a little bit disappointing, if I'm perfectly honest. I mean, the fact I got the photo at all, it does what I want, but it also fails quite a lot, which is, it's not its fault, it's the fault of its makers, which is a shame. But heading back into the low light situations, if you've got time to put it onto a slow shutter speed and let it gather the light, it can work quite well, and it focuses meters surprisingly well in an awkward situation. And in this case, here in the shopping centre, I did actually spend the time just dropping down slower and slower shutter speeds to see how much blur I could get into the people walking below without just hand holding it, because there is built-in image stabilisation, and it was, again, really very good. But you do still have the terrific grain, to the point that I'm not sure how much I would use this camera on a day-to-day basis if it was anything serious I wanted the photos for in a serious situation, because the grain could be, well, it could be knocking it to the point where I couldn't use the photos. But finally, when everything is working completely on its side, it will nail the focus bang on. It'll find the eyes, it'll find the face in the photo. These little goats and dogs, it catches them perfectly. On a blue sky sunny day, you really can't see the grain. So if you've got a day when you can use a low ISO and a fast shutter speed and everything's in your favour, it will look fantastic, but it really is limited to the good days and the good days only. So it's a bit of a gimmick, and it doesn't work quite as well as I'd hoped it would. So is it my go-to everyday Swiss Army knife camera? No, not quite really. Great gimmick, but really not good enough for every day. Sorry, Panasonic. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this, if it's been useful, please, as always, hit like and, of course, subscribe, and join us again next time playing with a different camera. Goodbye.